All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast. We are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to recap, the first half and the Mets versus Rockies series, as well as all the other news and rumors that have been going on in the past few days, every single thought that pops into our head. But before we do that, we must do our usual house cleaning, which is mandatory every single time. I want to remind everybody to subscribe to the Mets Weekly channel if you have not already. For this very podcast, which is now recorded live on Sundays and Thursdays following every series of every single piece of games. For those of you watching on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live exactly at that current time. For those of you in the live chat right now, and we see there's a lot of people chatting as of right now, I want to let you guys know that we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, and if you feel like you're being ignored, you are not. They're just being starred throughout the show. We can pull up as many to keep the flow of the conversation going. Also, remember to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok, which mainly features this guy to my right on the screen, his instant reactions after every single Mets game, titled The Mets Frankly Postgame. As well, for our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all of your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of all these new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day after this is recorded. So now without further ado, let's get into episode number 66. And we have a good comment in here from Darren Rivera popping in. He's saying that if you're looking for some most in-depth analysis and statistics with no nonsense, and Frank, I think that's a different Frank he's talking about. Look at
He
the
wouldn't
Mets, then you
capitalize
found the
it.
right place. He didn't. Listen, he didn't specify. I don't know. Maybe he's excluding you. He doesn't like you. He only likes me and Andrew. I don't know. Andrew's not here today, so if that's the case, you only like half the people on the screen. But other than that, let's just say roller coaster of a first half. I think we all can pretty much agree with that, no matter what. But the Mets currently stand at a very good spot right now, even though it was kind of a sour way to end it into the All-Star break. They are 3 games over 500. They are sitting comfy-ish because there's still some games that need to get done first that dictate their current spot, but they are right now, at least they will be tied for the last wild card spot when it's all said and done today. And right now they are, percentage points, obviously. It's still a little bit tight there, especially at the top of the wild card race. But they have been playing excellent baseball for the last 2 months, and it really has shown it. They are really looking at putting themselves in a really good position to buy at the deadline, possibly adding pieces to this team. There is also some knock on the door of some potential young pieces that maybe get plugged in here and there later on in this season. So it's all been really exciting and promising so far. A very good first half for what we really expected. How it all ended, pretty good. Was it a roller coaster? Absolutely. But we still have loads, and I mean loads of games to go. Still a huge stretch of the season left. Frank, what have you seen from this entire first half? Because we're going to get into all of it. But, quite a roller coaster. But we're finally here at the All-Star break. We get to take a breather.
Yeah, like you said, it has been a roller coaster. And, it's a long season, so you see the ups, you see the downs. And the thing is, we saw some really high highs and some really low lows. You think of, obviously, starting the season on a really rough stretch. Offense couldn't get going. And then after the lineup changes, we know that May 30th and everything like that, the offense was rolling. They had a really good June. July's been pretty good, not great, but the one thing that has been the most consistent is the struggles with the bullpen. I think what's encouraging is, like I said in the last episode, but I feel like Nunez is really the big key. Getting somebody that's not in the ninth inning, because you trust Edwin Diaz. We've talked about it before, but when you sign Diaz to that big extension, you count on him to be like the anchor of that bullpen. The bullpen is built around Edwin Diaz. So, you have to have confidence in him, but it's a matter of getting the ball to him. That's where the struggle's been. And Nunez, he's done a great job of, if you name him in the eighth inning, you name him in the seventh inning, name him with runners on base. I mean, and then on Saturday he did eighth inning and ninth inning, so he's been huge. But now it looks like maybe Budo is stepping up as well. So it's like, okay, now it's like you got Diaz, now you got Nunez, maybe you have Budo now. So it seems like slowly but surely they're at least getting a few guys that you could trust and rely on late in games. So they still need a few more, because obviously you'll have games where those guys are not available. So then you're going to Adrian Hauser and he's, giving up a home run derby. So they're still working on that. Phil Maton had a one out. He got that done. So it's something that they still have to continue bring in more arms, experiment with some other things, and just kind of see what they're going to do. And we'll get more into it, but there's just some guys that it's like we talk about the team inconsistencies, but the same thing goes like with the pitchers we saw today, like Quintana. He got to such a slow start this season, and then he gets rolling, but then he has a bad outing. And then same thing with Hauser. He in the starting rotation was absolutely brutal. We thought he was nearing like get him off the team territory. He goes to the bullpen. All of a sudden, he's doing well. And now, these past three outings, he's not looking too great, giving up a lot of long balls, which is unacceptable, especially in the bullpen. So it's been a team of inconsistencies. We've seen inconsistencies with the players themselves. So, it kind of all goes together. It's like inconsistent play leads to just inconsistencies for the entire team. So those are some of the things that they still have got to get figured out. I still think the big thing, though, is seeing the growth of the young players, Mark Vientos and Francisco Alvarez. That's been a huge theme of this first half of the season. Awesome to see from both of those young guys. But then a lot of these other guys that, didn't really talk about too much that we're going to get into later on, like Jose Iglesias, Luis Torrens, even Harrison Bader, like these guys all playing way above their projections. That has been a big key as really getting this team to be complete, despite, some guys have struggles, some guys have injuries, but things like that have all been very nice to see. So I do have to give credit where credit is due. But again, there still are some holes that need to be cleaned up. I mean, there still is the struggles of Jeff McNeil. I mean, that's been going on all year, the whole first half. So that they still have to kind of decide what they're going to do. I mean, you have that trade deadline of July 30th, and it's like, okay, are you going to do something by then, or are you just going to let this play out? With Starling Marte, he's hurt and still is hurt, and it doesn't look like things are getting better. And you've had DJ Stewart make way too many starts. Ben Gamel made a start the other day. Tyrone Taylor is just whiffing at everything he sees. So you have to decide, okay, am I going to stick with that as well? Or maybe I do bring in another outfielder. So they do have a few decisions they got to make. Like, we know the bullpen is the obvious weakness, but there are some things that you have to say to yourself, okay, are we going to stick with what we got? Or are we going to look to try to improve some other places as well? So that's what I'm curious to see, is just as far as like, how different is this team going to look? It's not going to be anything too drastic, but I do think they have to consider maybe making some changes, because they've tried to be patient with a lot of their guys, particularly with the hitters, and not been like quick triggers like, oh, this guy's had a bad couple weeks, get rid of him. They've really tried to give these guys as many opportunities as possible to break out of it. The pitching is a totally different story. I mean, we've seen so many guys send up, send down all the time, but the hitters is really what I'm kind of curious as far as like what are they going to do there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is still question marks, and that's the main reason as to why the Mets they're at this midway point of they're at the mediocre point. I mean, they're hovering around the 500 mark. They're not way above it, they're not way below it. And you're going to definitely have storylines of weird just constant questions about this team game after game. Sometimes it looks good, sometimes it looks better. You see a little bit of consistency, then it kind of just drops off, whether you're looking at the offense not getting going until the end of the game, or the offense kind of stalling out towards the end of the game. Of course, the bullpen is the main issue that we expect them to fix at the trade deadline. Now, Starling Marte, that situation, I do want to get Andrew in here for that more of a conversation later on for how we can kind of address that maybe at the trade deadline, because with Starling Marte, and I don't want to get too deep into this because it's a full-on discussion that we have had for so long. With Starling Marte, I am really, really nervous that we don't see him for the rest of the season. I really am, because I'm not going to lie, at the pace that we are going, it has been kind of odd to see them put a time frame on it. We get no updates whatsoever. And then it just disappears out of thin air. Nothing happens. He hasn't even resumed baseball activities yet. And that is a big part of the roster, whether you are frustrated with how Marte plays in the field or you're impressed with how he has played offensively better than your expectation. Speaking of players above your expectation, we'll get into those. But when you just see Starling Marte, he is a big part of this team. And we need to see him kind of use his tools out there to help you win. Obviously, the Mets still have that on their team without him. But it is a $20 million hole on this payroll right now. And whether you have all the money, more than money than God, with Steve Cohen, it still is an investment that the Mets made 2 years ago, which continues to be the reason as to why this contract became so sour so quick. Whether he produces or not, there is the concern, which I have had since day one, which is his health. His health is a problem. His health will always be a problem. And he is 35 years old. It is not going to get any better. We have said this plenty of times. Real quick, Frank, if you want to add anything to this Starling Marte situation, because I feel like everything that we have said has just been the same. I mean, it's the same thing we say about Starling Marte just year in and year out. I mean, week in, week out, month by month. I mean, this is the same thing every single time. The health concerns are big concerns.
Yeah, I mean, when it first happened, I talked about how they mishandled the whole thing from the beginning. This is a guy with an injury history, particularly with his lower half, and you have another lower half injury, and you're saying, okay, it's bothering him, so he's going to sit. Now he's going to play. It hurts again. Now he's going to sit. And it just went back and forth where it kept nagging, and he'd miss a day, be back for a couple days, just going back and forth. And then they say, okay, well, now we're going to give him a full month of rest and see how that goes. See if, maybe the reason why it wasn't healing is because he kept playing and things like that. And he hasn't been moving around at all. And they're saying that it's been a slow recovery, slow progression, which to me is a very bad sign, because that means that, first of all, obviously it's going to take longer than the month. But then how do we not know that once he does resume baseball activity, that doesn't just flare up again like the way it had been when he was playing? So I think that that's something that really is an issue. And the other part of it, too, is that we talk so much about how they really, in an ideal world, you'd want to limit his mobility and how much he's moving around, but you can't DH him because of JD Martinez. So he's going to be in the outfield. And that is not conducive to a knee injury where there is inflammation and you're trying to not have too much of a workload. So no matter what, it's not going well. And I think that between having an injury history already with the lower half and his age, this is something that is not getting better, and is something that we said has been a concern, and is something that continues to be more of a concern. Obviously, he had a whole bunch of lower half issues last year, gets the double groin surgery, thinking that that sorts out one thing, but then now it's the knee. And as you get a year older, that just becomes even tougher. So if I'm the Mets, I think you have to go under the assumption and the presumption that he will not be a factor for you going forward. That's the way I would approach it. I think if you get him, that's great. But, the way I look at it is that,
to be honest, not even going forward, but like August 1st, when you're talking about the trade deadline, he's not going to be a factor. He's not going to be on the field. I can guarantee you that.
And even you also have to think about, he's still under contract for next year. But again, I wouldn't have high expectations for him next year either, being a year older. So what happens is that you're looking at the outfield market, and so many people someone like Luis Robert, he's a center fielder. But Rooker from Oakland, he's a nice player. But when you're looking at a lot of the other teams, like the good teams, they're the ones that have the good right fielders. There's not a whole bunch of really solid outfielders that are out there that are available. I mean, they're guys that are a little better than Taylor and players like that. So you're not really going to be getting a star. I think it's just very unfortunate that while this has been happening, Drew Gilbert was also hurt. Now is finally working his way back. Like that would have been
Yeah.
a nice like mid-season. Like, oh, Gilbert's developed enough. Now we can kind of slot him in
Yeah.
there. I mean, do you want to get crazy and move Acuna to the outfield and have him play right field like his brother? It's something to consider. I mean, I think that when I look at the right field platoon or combination Mets have been doing, you have DJ Stewart who doesn't swing at anything, and you got Tyrone Taylor that swings at everything. So if you can get some kind of happy medium between the two players, you'd have an average guy. But what it comes down to it is that between Taylor, Gamble, and Stewart, they're all below average offensively. As far as the grand total, it's still below league average. And in a league where offense is down, they're still below league average. So that's, to me, like, it's tough when McNeil is struggling to also have that going on as well in right field. So they've got to make a decision there. It's like, okay, you could, like, second base, a super easy fix. You just start Iglesias every day because he's still red hot. So that's an easy one to fix. But this right field thing, that's something that they've tried a lot of different things, and it's definitely tough to figure out as far as what they want to do. But again, if it's me, I'm going with the expectation I don't have him this year and not expecting much next year. So if they have to make a move for a guy who might be under contract for next season as well, that's fine by me. I mean, and listen, everyone talks about Juan Soto being a free agent or Kyle Tucker being a free agent. You just focus on this year right now and see kind of what you could piece together before we're doing anything crazy.
Listen, I think that it's going to be a continuous conversation throughout either if it's this year or this offseason. He is going to be one of the pieces that you would like to offload, or you would like to kind of minimize what you're counting on with him. And if the Mets are going to go into this trade deadline relying on Marte to fill the right field void, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a real big issue. It's not even just if I'm away, like it's not even just like if it's a way big, concern, or I think that overall offensively, it seems like he was able to see that he was able to show that he was capable of producing to anchor the bottom of the lineup. But the problem is that we talk about this all the time. We need all four limbs to work in order to get value from Starling Marte, and we are not really going to be counting on this actually happening. And that's the main reason as to why this contract is a nightmare to look at. Even if you're looking at it from year to year, I get it, it's another year or whatever, but these years go by and by, you need to know the direction of the team, and if he's not here to be on the field to provide that, there's going to be some tough conversations to have, even though he has been productive. He's been kind of like a healthy zero, obviously canceling him out his offense with his defense. So it's going to be interesting. I know that I've been seeing a lot of outfielders being connected to the Mets, with a lot of beat reporters talking about that. We'll get into that eventually, because Marte, we probably need like one more update on him until they confirm that, okay, we're going to have to get an outfielder at the deadline. But I believe that it's more like going to be a marginal outfielder that can fill in what Marte can do, or what Tyrone Taylor lacks. Like, they're going to probably have to go with a platoon unless they do something absolutely crazy. Because, again, somebody like Brent Rooker, and I'm just going to say real quick, he's not going to solve the right field problem. He can barely play left field. He's more of a DH left fielder. Like, he's, what he's capable of, the two positions he's capable of is pretty much what DJ Stewart is capable of. Rooker's a way better hitter, and he's, incredible. But it's kind of weird to see. I don't know. We'll see what the asking price is for that. We'll talk about that eventually, probably maybe in the next episode, about that, because we're getting close to the trade deadline, and some questions are going to be answered. I can't hear you. I don't know if you're muted or not, but
okay, there we go. I think I was unmuted, but Mike was okay. So you know as well as I do that with the Athletics, everybody has a price, no matter who you are. Nobody lasts there. Everyone goes, no matter who it is. If you're decent, you're gone. That's just how it is. So you have to know that they're looking for something. And, I've talked about this, but you have to look at what the fit is. And there's a lot of redundancy in this top half of the farm system. But like we've talked about between Jet and
Yeah.
Acuna, Gilbert, there's a lot of similarities. And Lindor's here, and he's here to stay. If you could, I'm not saying move those guys for Rooker, but you move them for somebody who does fit, then that's when you actually make the trade. So you can't, you don't want a whole lineup of the same guy, especially when it's not an ideal build, when they all have the
I don't
same
wanna I
glaring
don't wanna
weakness.
like I don't want to model like a trade of an athletic as to where, because they really don't care what they get back, because the
Oh, that's
management
true.
just
I mean,
doesn't
they've
give a shit.
gotten robbed
So
constantly.
yeah, but when you talk about like a Chris Bassett trade that we made, obviously that was more of a rental. Rooker has like 5 years of control on him. So there might be a little bit more value as compared to
Yeah.
JT Ginn and Adam Oller. But you also can go into this consideration that the A's, they don't care. They just don't care. They just want to cut as many losses as they can. If they have to pay them $1 million in arbitration, you're gone. They don't care. And this is another point. Again, I don't want to go dive deep into it, but it's going to be talked about eventually. Like, that's going to be a future consideration. I'm not fully on board with it because I don't really think that it's really going to help as much as people think it would. But he does play right field. He is a left-handed bat. That probably is something that can fit into this lineup, but it's not going to be the ideal fit, I don't think, to fill in those margins that you're trying to, kind of fill in with what you're missing with Taylor or DJ Stewart. So I think when you look at it, and also you're going to also have to probably platoon it as the best way to get the value, because Michael Conforto has struggled against lefties, and he hasn't gotten any better at it since he's left. So now, obviously, let's get into this series, of course, and we're going to give our comments through studs and duds, because we've got tons of stuff to talk about. This is a jam-packed episode, so for those of you, sit tight, grab some popcorn. This is going to be a fun episode. We've got tons of stuff to talk about that is going forward for the All-Star break and all of this stuff. So let's get into this series. Now, the first game of the series, we had a great performance from Sean Manaea. There was a little bit of traffic on the base pass, of course, gave up a few runs, but 9 strikeouts, gave us 7 innings, gave us the length that we needed. He had not his best stuff, but he had pretty good stuff as well. Mark Vientos with a home run, a 2 home run game from Jose Iglesias. Oh my God. And a 2 home run game from Harrison Bader as well. The Mets completely attacked. I think it was Feltner, or it was somebody else. I don't know who it was in that first game. It was somebody, but they destroyed him early on and knocked him out. But the bullpen, of course, had to make this thing interesting, following some hits by Alvarez and hit by Lindor, Nimmo, and even McNeil got a hit. That was great. But you did get 3 runs surrendered by the bullpen. Diaz did lock it down. It got a little nerve-wracking because the Mets have really had their full-on trademark this year, as their bullpen just loves to make everything interesting and nibble at the strike zone. So the Mets got the first win. Second game of this series was a little bit more easing towards the end. Christian Scott, of course, did not go that much length. Lots of traffic, missed a lot of spots. Still going on with the growing pains of him getting used to the workload in the major leagues. So no real overreactions from me on that. I know a lot of Mets fans are already ready to call him a bust and throw him into the Hudson River, but it's whatever. But we did have 4 runs scored early on in the game from Terrens with a huge screw up by the Rockies on the infield, and then McNeil. I don't know if it was clear the bases, but he brought in 2. And he was the main contributor for a second, being the difference maker. But then the Mets, of course, with Christian Scott struggling, Budo and Nunez pretty much held down the fort from there. Francisco Lindor had a huge 3-run homer late on in the game to give the Mets some breathing room. And Danel Nunez, what would we do without this man? And also Jose Budo, who also pitched well in relief. 4 2/3 scoreless out of the bullpen. The Mets got the win and the series victory. Now, this is from today, the Finale, Jose Quintana was not great. 5 earned runs in 5.2 innings pitched, 8 strikeouts, had a lot of base runners, a lot of traffic, gotten in and out of trouble, but still was not good. Gave up a lot of home runs. I believe there was 4 allowed by Jose Quintana. Not good. Mets offense tried to fight back. You had a home run from Alonso to tie the game early on. You had a 4-hit game from Jose Iglesias, who's just been all over the diamond for the Mets ever since he suited up for us just, a month ago, and we'll talk about him later. And the Mets gave up 6 home runs in the spoiler loss. And it just was a sour way to end this series. Let's just say that. It wasn't great. And let's just say I said this on Twitter. I'm going to say this first, and then we'll get into the studs and duds of how we can recap this thing. Losing any games to this team, to me, feels unacceptable. I'm sorry. I just cannot really fathom losing games to a Colorado Rockies team that is this bad. A Colorado Rockies team that doesn't hit for much power, giving up 6 home runs to them. I mean, listen, and that kind of weighs on a lot of Quintana, and also with Hauser. And we're already got some people joining my side here of last episode. I was saying, I guess Carson was right. Darren Rivera saying this. I guess Carson was right about Quintana in his observation of selling high on him. That's what I mean. It's just like Jose Quintana, like that. That's a piece you can live without. I think that is a piece that you can live without. Like, that's what I mean. It's like we weren't saying that 3 years ago. 3 years ago, 3 weeks ago. We weren't saying 3 weeks ago, this guy, we got to keep him because of his good ERA in the last 6 starts or whatever. Like that, I mean, that's what I mean. It's just like, I don't think, Quintana is a guy that you need to keep for this postseason rotation or down the stretch of the postseason rotation. They got to sell high on him, And listen, I get it. 5-1 on the homestand. I sound ridiculous, but that Colorado team is terrible. They're not good. They're awful. They're probably even worse than the A's. They're the second worst probably in the league. Whether you want to look at it record-wise or talent-wise,
don't forget
they're
about
bad.
The White Sox.
They're really bad. Especially when the reason as to why you lost was not a specialty of the team whatsoever, a sub-400 slugging team that also is so terrible that they play in such a hitter-friendly park. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I always had Quintana on the trade bus. Let's just say that. I always had him there. You guys just didn't agree with me. And it got blown up today by an awful Colorado team. Studs and duds. Let's describe this the best way that we can. Frank, who do you got as your stud for this series?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be Jose Iglesias. I mean, I really loved the multi-home run game for a guy who's just not known as a power hitter, not known as a home run hitter, but he was just on another one. He gets the multi-home run game. Unfortunately, he sits the next day, and we can get to like the lefty stuff later on about starting lefties and Ben Gamble and all that. But then today he goes 4 for 4. Gets on base with a walk as well, so technically 5 for 5, and he's making tremendous defensive plays, whether you put him at second base, you put him at third base. I mean, the play he had today where the ball's hit on the ground and he's going to second, like underhand from his shin to get the runner at second, just these crazy arm angles with accuracy is just tremendous. So he's doing it every way you could want. I mean, unfortunately, he was trying to hustle today, and he ended up sliding past the bag. So, that was unfortunate. But, it just kind of shows to you he's really doing so much, whether it's hitting, what he's doing on the bases, what he's doing in the field, what he's doing in the dugout. I mean, he's just been such a fantastic addition to this team. As a guy signing a minor league deal has now really become irreplaceable. He's just done so much, and I've loved what I've seen. And, he's one of those guys where I've talked about they get off to a hot start and you're like, oh, well, they just got off to a hot start. How long is this going to last? But now you've reached the end of the first half of the season and OPS sitting at 999. Like, it's still playing. And with we're getting a 4-hit game, like, he's maybe even better now. It's not even like a thing where he was really hot then still back down there. Like, he's still scorching hot at the plate in addition to giving you fantastic defense. So again, it's just so interesting to me when you have a guy who's playing so well, who plays the same position as a guy playing really not well, and then just kind of that decision on a day-to-day basis. Like I said, they were putting McNeil right field a lot lately to kind of skirt away from it, try to accomplish both. But for me, this guy just needs to play every day. He's just been that good.
I mean, I got no complaints here. We'll obviously get into the specifics on Jose Iglesias in a few seconds here, but I'm gonna give it to Daniel Nunez because that was quite the show he put on yesterday. Let's just say that he's been the guy to put out the fires, as I'm pretty sure Frank said like last week, like the fireman role, the Andrew Miller role, and he's really been put into these situations, getting the double play ball. He got the final out in that 8th inning, and then he just turns around through an up down, which you never know with the workload that he has had this year, and he hasn't had for a while, coming off of injuries from last year. Strikes out the side. Just a complete dog performance. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I guess the kids say it like that, but an incredible performance from Daniel Nunez. And I said this in my post game that I had to be you yesterday. I said this, where would we be without Daniel Nunez? Where exactly would the Mets be without him? I don't know. I think that there's quite a difference make from Daniel Nunez. Let's just say that. All right, duds. Frank?
Yeah, I mean, there's two obvious ones, but I was going to give it to the guy who made the start, Quintana. It's just really unacceptable when we've talked about the stuff not being too great, but he's a guy that for his career has been known for keeping the ball in the ballpark, and that has not happened this year, and it really didn't happen today. And the team that you're facing, I understand that there is some potential in some of these players. Like, it's no knock on Tovar or Doyle or the switch hitting first baseman, Togaloa. He's just, a beast. Like, those guys have power. I'm not denying that. But as someone who doesn't have really good stuff, to be missing so badly, middle, with a lot of your pitches just, they're very flat, it's gonna get hammered. So even if you have Francisco Alvarez behind the plate, when you're missing that badly with your pitches consistently, you're going to get crushed. So it was just very frustrating because obviously the Mets missed plenty of opportunities with runners on base and things like that, but you just couldn't keep him in the game. It's like as soon as you feel like Quintana maybe was getting a little bit of a roll, maybe had a good inning, it's like first batter home run. It's just like bam, bam, and it was just constantly happening. So that definitely was very frustrating. He had worked 7 innings in his previous 2 starts. He couldn't go through 6. You knew your bullpen was pretty tired, not having Nunez, not having Budo, so you wanted to get at least a little bit of length and not have to use Adrian Hauser too much, which then that led to bad things. So just all around, there was a trickle effect of having the bad start, then just led to everything going really poorly.
Yeah, with Quintana, I think what was really like, I don't know if it's funny or just like ironic, was on the broadcast they're talking about his changeup grip, and they're talking about how he's kind of reinvented that or whatever, and they're saying like, oh, it complements very good with his fastball. Then he throws a fastball and it goes over the wall. Like, that's what I mean. It's like there's not really many redeeming qualities here. I don't understand the fascination. He's a back-end starter, okay? And if he's not going to pitch like a back-end starter, he shouldn't be here. He should be on the trade block as a pending free agent. Scott gives up home runs too, as M-Easy is putting in here. Scott is 25 years old. Scott is a rookie. Jose Quintana, known for his entire career for not giving up home runs. And guess what he's been doing this year? Giving up home runs. So that's not good. That's not good in terms of skill set. Now, let's also get into the, excuse me. Wait, okay. And we did have somebody in the chat ask, what is the news with Kodai Senga and Marte? Well, here you go. Kodai Senga, he came off of a rehab start today for AAA Syracuse on Sunday afternoon. He pitched 4 2/3, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 3 Ks, threw 67 pitches, which was expected of him. And there is still a to be determined decision whether he does do one more rehab start or he does return to the major leagues at the after the All-Star break. Drew Smith underwent an internal brace procedure on his right elbow on Friday night, and he is completely out for the season and most likely will be he will most likely never pitch for the Mets ever again. Now, our opinion aside, he will be a unrestricted free agent following the 2024 season. So that most likely means that we've seen the last of Drew Smith in a Mets uniform. Sean Reed-Foley threw a bullpen session on Saturday. And he's also expected to throw another bullpen session on Tuesday in Port St. Lucie. During the All-Star break, he was placed on the 15-day IL due to a right shoulder impingement in early June, and he definitely would be quite the boost to a hurting Mets bullpen that has really, really struggled to gain consistency in the past few weeks. And of course, Starling Marte, we've got some news today that his recovery from the right knee bone bruise has been fairly slow after he is still feeling pain weeks after being placed on the injured list. He has been receiving treatment daily, and he has yet to begin baseball activities, and the Mets are unsure when Marte will return to action on the field. So, obviously, we talked about Starling Marte, of course, with the situation there. I've talked about it just being a scary situation over and over again. Anything else you want to add to that? If not, we'll just move on here and get to some of the positivity. And let's just talk about the man who has been, I'd say, put a massive spotlight on him. And whether he is just a vibes guy, whether he's just a guy who puts on a show for the fans, that being Jose Iglesias, who has been phenomenal for the Mets ever since being called up from AAA with the struggling Jeff McNeil. There has been some scattered playing time with him, but when he has been in the lineup, he has been very, very productive. He was productive today, finishing off the first half today in the game, going 4 for 4. He just has been all over the place. Of course, you get some incredible defensive prowess as well. He's lost a little bit of a step, but overall, Jose Iglesias, what a revelation that this has been. And it all really started with a minor league contract that he signed in December before spring training started, with an invite to spring training. One of those role players that could be, on the taxi squad or whatever. But with the playing time that he has gotten since he was called up, he has pretty much ran away with it. It's pretty impressive for a guy who was pretty much unemployed last year. He couldn't even get a job. And he's been one of our best performers in a pinch in the margins as one of our best role players. Obviously, these numbers are a little bit skewered as to this game today, but you can see 940 OPS. I'm pretty sure right now it's at 999 for the season after the game he just had. A 166 weighted runs created plus. He hit 3 home runs, including a 2 home run game in this series against the Rockies in the opener. And you can see some of the notes towards the end there, which is one of the big parts here in terms of situational hitting. He is 10 for 20 with runners in scoring position, which is kind of totaling out to I believe an 1100 OPS as of right now. And that is about a 271 weighted runs created plus. And you may think that this guy's just putting the ball in play. He's getting a little lucky. Not really, to be honest. The quality of contact has been fairly impressive by Jose Iglesias. Even though he's not hitting for much power, he has been able to make great contact, and it looks like it's going to sustain. I don't think he's going to be a 900 OPS hitter for that long, but it still has been very productive in the 69th percentile in the league with a 340 expected weighted on base average. He has also shown quite the discipline as well. With a 13.6 whiff rate. He's been able to make a lot of contact. He's in the 96th percentile on that. And of course, in the sweet spot rate, which is one of the main reasons as to why he has had such good quality of contact for ex-WOBA, that being 36.8%, which is in the league percentile of the 76th. And of course, the main note that we obviously have to bring up is the viral pop single that he has that is the top that was a top of the Billboard's Latin Digital Song Series charts. And he also, we got the news today that he also will be performing that at the Home Run Derby tomorrow in Texas for All-Star Weekend, which is freaking awesome. I mean, that is awesome. Of course, he's been quite the vibes guy. It's been quite the entertainment. Let's just say, overall, I just want to say before you can get into the impact that he has made. I've always been a fan of Jose Iglesias. I think like for the long time that we've known each other, you know that I am a big fan of Jose Iglesias. For his defensive days back in Detroit, he was one of the best defenders in the game at the time. I've never seen him hit like this. This is incredible what he has been able to do. And obviously we know about the adjustments that he made during the offseason to his bat, adding some bat speed. I'm pretty sure he worked with drive line. So, I mean, at 34 years old, again, is this a future franchise cornerstone? No, but in his role, he just seems like he's just in the middle of everything. And he has been one of the top contributors as to why the Mets have gotten on this hot streak. And there's been tons of role players, but Jose Iglesias, you got to put the spotlight on him because I mean the guy's a pop star as well. So I mean, what else can you ask for? I mean, he's a great player and he's got an awesome song as well. So Frank, what have you liked from Jose Iglesias? This has just been a revelation, shall we say?
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that is doing what Jeff McNeil was supposed to do, as far as being a guy who hits for the high batting average, doesn't whiff, puts the ball in play, good with men on base. Like, these were all things that Jeff McNeil used to do when he was going really good. But Iglesias has just done it so much better. And I feel like now that we could finally put the narrative to rest that moving on from Luis Guillorme was the right move, and getting a guy who actually has multiple tools, who could run, who could field, who could hit, like he could sing. Like this guy literally, he has a six-tool player. You know what I mean? He's also got the vibes, music to go with it. So he's just done it all. Like I said, I just love that it's at second, it's at third. Like just no matter, even if we didn't have Lindor, like it could be at shortstop. Like he just does so many good things for the team no matter what. And again, I think that just having another guy where it kind of gave them a bit of a rally cry, because this team, it was going bad when they were a lot of games under 500, way out of it. They started clicking, they started playing the song, and they got excited every time they went in the clubhouse after the game. They're playing the song. Hit the home run, they're playing the song. Luis Severino has a sign. All the guys in the dugout are just going crazy like every time they hit home runs. So it's just really nice to see the way this has happened. And they're talking about today when he was an all-star in 2015 and DeGrom faced him. He's playing better now than he did in 2015 when he was an all-star with the Tigers. So it's just so interesting, especially like you said, like this guy, he didn't play at all in the major leagues in 2023. Not a single game in the major leagues in 2023. And, this is a guy that just didn't give up, and he's really showing how well he's done. And even though he's somebody who doesn't whiff, he goes out of the strike zone, but he makes contact. And like you said, makes a good quality of contact. His bat, he's just everywhere. I mean, that bat is quick despite his age. Like, he gets it out there. Like you said, he's got a good sweet spot rate. Like, he's just a guy that's putting together really good at bats. He's fouling off tough pitches. Obviously, he drew the tough walk against Chapman in the Pittsburgh series. So he's a guy that's just also putting together good quality of at bats every time he steps up to the plate. And I find it so crazy the days when he does bat seventh specifically, because I tweeted this, but it's like when you have Iglesias seventh and McNeil eighth, you just see the disparity, and it becomes even more glaring. how much Iglesias is outplaying McNeil, yet McNeil is still the starter. So uh, I always talk about what is that like number, what is that leash, as far as like what do you have to see before you really full on make the switch. And that's kind of what I'm looking at is that the way I see it is I want to play the hot hand. I feel like if Iglesias is going so well for me, play the hot hand. And I'm glad the Mets won Saturday, but I'm never ever in favor of two guys get multi home run games and then you sit them the next day. I think that, first of all, they're trying to build that, especially a bench player in Iglesias, like you're trying to build that rhythm, that consistency, but also from a mental aspect of trying to keep your confidence going and just your overall momentum. That stinks. You put together this amazing game and then your reward is you sit in favor of DJ Stewart and Ben Gamel. I mean, come on now. I know Feltner isn't good against left-handed hitters, but, Ben Gamel is a freaking carbon copy of DJ Stewart. He's just up there looking for walks. I mean, that's just not doing much for this team. Just everybody, why these guys bring a bat if they don't swing the dang thing? Everyone's just out here looking for walks. So I just feel like Iglesias, he has to play more. He's just been so good that you need more of him. So I do want to see him play more and just kind of see where this takes us. I just want to always see like what are the final numbers when it's all said and done. I mean, again, if he has more consistent playing time, could he play better? It's hard to when your numbers are that good, but it's tough when you're getting a part-time playing time. So you can't say enough good things. There's just nothing bad to say. I mean, he, like you said, just done it all. Like he's not striking out. He's good with runners on base. Like he's just done everything. Defense, like. There's just nothing he hasn't done well. I mean, it's just been a phenomenal story, and I'm just really happy for the guy. By all accounts, he seems awesome. I mean, everybody loves him. So again, I'm very happy for him, and I'm looking forward. I also said this: my most exciting thing for All-Star Week is seeing his performance. Even if he's lip syncing again, it's fine. It's fun. I'd rather watch that than Home Run Derby than the All-Star game that means absolutely nothing and is just a regular game. I'd rather see the Iglesias concert. So, good for him, and just keep the good vibes rolling.
Yeah, obviously, I agree there because, the home run derby has not been the same ever since Prince Fielder left us. Let's just say that. But I understand the argument of the lefty righty here, obviously, because it's, it's veteran, guys playing spurts. They can be a platoon bat, but it doesn't work here because he has a 915 OPS against right-handed hitters. Iglesias. So again, there's just no real excuse. If you're talking about riding the hot hand, trying to get wins at will, trying to get runs at will, manufacturing runs, there's no reason as to why Jeff McNeil should be in this lineup over him. And the only thing that is keeping Jeff McNeil in this lineup, obviously, is the right field position. It's a state of the obvious. And this brings up another point, of course, which Lane asked early on. I think this was before the stream even started. He asked, do the Mets call up Acuna? Now, here's the thing about this. I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that Jeff McNeil has been really bad. Jeff McNeil has not only been the worst player on the team, he's been one of the worst players in all of baseball. That's a given. And that's the main reason as to why I think a lot of people want to call up Acuna. Acuna hasn't been amazing in AAA. He's shown spurts, hasn't been great. I get that. But the problem is that Acuna, even if you do call him up, he's not going to get any playing time with a Jose Iglesias playing like this. It's not going to happen. So whether you look at it from McNeil needs to be sent down to the minors or whatever, take an assignment or whatever, he's not going to get any playing time. The thing about prospects is whether they're good or bad or whether you have high hopes for them, they need to be playing every day. They need to be getting those reps in the major leagues in order to finish off their development. They're not going to learn anything sitting on the bench, and that's what he's probably going to be doing under a guy like Jose Iglesias. But, Jose Iglesias, what a revelation. Let's just say that. As compared to what we've been seeing from Jeff McNeil, which has pretty much gone stale from him, this guy just plays like he's got nothing to lose. He really does.
Yeah, and real quick with McNeil, I found it very interesting because it wasn't the at-bat that JD Martinez pitch hit for him in the ninth inning. So keep in mind, Jeff McNeil is getting pitch hit for. That should give you a sign as to how the manager has confidence or lack thereof in a player. But The at bat before, McNeil was facing the left-hander. McNeil actually got the double. But with Pete Alonso getting the DH start, Mark Vance was at first, Iglesias was at third. And Jeff McNeil starting at second. JD Martinez pinch hitting for Jeff McNeil. In order for it to work defensively, the Mets would have had to have forfeited the DH spot because Alonso would have had to come into the game. Vance had to go to third, and Iglesias would go to second because you're carrying three outfielders who only play the outfield. So, I mean, unless you want to put maybe DJ Stewart at first and then move Vientos to third and Iglesias to second, like you got to decide between Stewart and Gamble. Like they have got to make a decision there. Yeah, and I'd go Gamble because at least he has speed. Like, at least I have one extra tool. Because for Stewart, if he's giving me nothing defensively and they're both just going to walk, I'd rather have the guy a little bit of speed. So they've got to make a decision there. And whether it's Acuna or it's, I don't know, Mike Brasso or it's, Brett Beatty, like somebody that plays the infield really should be over here instead of Stewart or Ben Gamble, because Taylor's gonna stay. I'm fine with that. Like I think he's a perfectly fine fourth outfielder, not a starting right fielder, but fine as a fourth outfielder. So that is something that, from a managerial perspective, I was very curious about. Is that they didn't do it the at bat before, but the ninth inning, let's say JD Martinez does hit a magical pinch hit, 3-run homer that ties up the game. It's like, okay, now we're changing the defense even more, and now we're probably gonna have DJ Stewart playing first or whatever. And it's like, is that something you really necessarily want to do, should do? I just felt that it hamstringed the Mets a little bit in that sense, where as far as we talk about making the most out of a roster spot and using tools and things like that, I just can't see both of those guys staying. I feel like it's just, they're just too redundant when there's just an obvious need for another infielder. And again, it's not a huge deal. Like, it's not make or break. Wasn't going to win a Met game, lose a Met game, but something that I could see being a little problematic in a certain scenario. So it's just something that kind of stood out to me as I'm thinking about the decisions as I'm seeing them happen.
Yeah, of course. When we talk about the JD Martinez pinch hit at the end of the game, I actually had a different thought, and that was, are they going to actually put, because there's a righty on the mound, are they going to put TJ Stewart in here as the tying run at the plate with 2 out?
That's what Gary said. He said he thought, too. Yeah, I was literally about to flip out.
I was going to punch a hole in the wall. I really was. Because, obviously, we've talked about it. The Rockies bullpen actually has been relatively okay in this series, and it's one of the worst in all of baseball.
Even though all those guys have like 6 ERAs, but whatever.
Yeah, they've all been bad. They've all been really, really bad this year. They were good in this series, of course. But I was ready to flip out, but then I was like, you know what? Mendoza, my dog, he knows the right move here. Obviously, JD Martinez struck out to end the game, but we already know that if you need someone to pinch hit, you're not going to DJ Stewart. You're going to JD Martinez, one of the best hitters of this generation. So I was glad to see that. Hopefully there's a way as to where they look over JJ Stewart and say, okay, yeah, this guy sucks. He had a great hot streak or whatever, but he's not a major league player. He's a bench bat at best, and there's no real reason to have a bench bat, especially when you have JD Martinez here that covers a lot of that designated hitter spot. So let's get into what has been happening on for the entire first half. And I want to do a little segment, and we'll make it as quick as we could, but, we'll get into the discussions here and then. You guys can give your opinions as well. We're going to give out our first half awards. Now, it's not really the first half because it's way past 81 games, but we are at the All-Star break, so we have a little bit more conversation and ning to do. And no, I did that glitch on purpose. But I don't know how long we're gonna be doing this here, but I have 7 different awards that we can give out here. And you guys can follow along as well. We'll maybe pull up some of your opinions. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory. So the first one I want to start off is a player that has played to your expectations. I guess we'll call this the Told You So Award or something, because we knew that this was going to happen. Somebody who you expected to be good, they were good. Or maybe somebody you expected to be dog shit, and they were dog shit.
Wow,
Because I'm
that's a
pretty sure
tough
I've
one.
picked James
Yeah.
McCann for this before, whenever we've done this before. But
Yeah,
that was
no,
a
that's a
long,
tough
long time
one.
ago. I'm going
Yeah,
to
I
start off.
mean,
I'll give it so you can have some thought. This is pretty
mhm.
easy for me. I got to give it to Brandon Nimmo because I never have to worry about this guy being consistent. I know he started off a little bit slow or whatever, but overall, this man has come through when we've needed it. He's the biggest all star snub on this team. We've already talked about that, and he's pretty much continued to prove that just in just an incredible player. And let me just say that. I just expect him to be productive every single year. And, obviously he's not the biggest toolsy player, of course. He tries his best, but that bat, I don't see aging for a while because it just keeps getting better into his 30s. So I know a lot of people, talk about Alonso and they talk about Lindor or, they talk about DeGrom or whatever. Brandon Nimmo, all I can say is number nine's going to look really good in the rafters one day. Let's just say that. And I'm just going to put that on the table. And if you agree with me, you agree with me. And also, by the way, S&Y, you put out a tweet of their best draft picks because if it's draft week, Brandon Nimmo not on there. One of their best first round picks, but Greg Jeffries is on there. All right, cool. So we're gonna snub another SNY writer is gonna snub him. What is it, Danny Ambriano? I don't know, but then and Martino putting Verdugo over Nimmo and his
Mhm.
Mankeys or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just
You
come
don't see
on, man.
Brandon Nimmo
Like, get
falling
out of
down
here.
on a game-winning play. So,
Yeah, like,
it's
ooh, ooh. All right, all right, all right, all right. Playing to your
sorry,
expectations,
sorry.
Frank. You can pick the same one if you want. It's
No, I
pretty.
mean, I have a guy that I was expecting him to have a better season, but this is probably even better than I thought, and that's my guy, Francisco Alvarez. I felt
Yeah, all
that,
right.
as a guy who has such a great rookie season, it would just make sense that with more seasoning, he's going to be better. And I feel like I knew there was going to be maturity, but the maturity both offensively and in the field behind the plate has been so much more than I expected. His discipline just looks so much better than what it was. His approach as a hitter also just looks completely different. He was a guy that was just like a young hitter, like a rookie. He's just up there swinging for the fences. He has crazy power. He's just letting it fly. And it resulted in a ton of home runs from the catcher position. His home runs are down, but average up, on base percentage up. He's working counts more. He's
Still
just
getting
seeing a
extra
lot more
base hits.
pitches. Yeah, he's still getting extra base hits, but he's using the opposite field now. He's going up the middle more. Before he was more pull, just going to left field. But obviously, just
That's
you
when he
see
was
the
fun.
difference in the team's record on the field when they're pitching and he's the one catching. Just his feel for the game, it's been so rapid. He knows the right time when to talk to the pitcher. He just knows. I think even today it didn't work out, but he's in a 3-2 count, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Wait, I need more rosin for my bat." Like the way he uses his knowledge as a catcher to mess up pitchers, knowing when to call timeouts, always in dialogue with the umpires when he's at the plate, being like, "Oh, you're gonna call that strike for me? That up and away pitch? Am I gonna get that too?" Okay, just making sure because he knows what's happening during the game since he's catching. So he's using that experience as an advantage when he's the one at the plate. So I just feel like the development in such a short amount of time has been great. I've been saying that they should extend this guy, and listen, that contract is getting more expensive by the day. So let's get on that. I mean, I don't want an Alonso 2.0 situation where now we got to have a situation where we're waiting till they go to free agency and now it's going to cost more. Save yourself some money now. Like, there's not many Francisco Alvarez's out there. So just extend him, keep him. He's just an awesome player. Just he does so many things for your team that impact winning. Like, this is a guy that we talk about. Oh well, what'd be the difference if the Mets actually traded Alonso? Like, no, you see the difference when this guy plays, when this guy doesn't play. And Torrens has been phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, Torrens has been excellent, amazing, but Francisco Alvarez just been really, really good on both sides. So for me, I always have a high expectations for him, but he's even kind of exceeded that. But I knew there's going to be improvement, but not necessarily to this extent.
Yeah, and it's been proven on the field as well. They have really gone through, the toughest month of the toughest part of the season this year is with him not there. I mean, it was pretty self-explanatory. Now, obviously, he's still young. There's still things that need to be etched out, but he's 22 years old. He's not like, oh, well, we're getting close to, Brett Beatty. It's getting late early. 22 years old, man. He's so young. He's only going to get better. I mean, what else can you say? There's not enough that you can say about Francisco Alvarez of how good he has been at the major league level in such little time. Now, let's go into a player who has played below expectations. I guess we can call this the what the fuck, bro, something. I don't know. Who has been pretty disappointing, Frank? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be my other guy, Jeff McNeil. I feel like he's a guy that, like, we've seen him have bad years before. I mean, that's not the surprising part, but every time he had a bad year, he always followed it up with a good year. So I was just hoping that with previous trends that he had the bad year last year, now he was due for the good year. Well, now he got even worse. So that has been something that's really concerning. And not only offensively, but like I've said before, the defense also just totally falling off the map has also just been very alarming. It's a really bad look when you're a second baseman and the shortstop goes all the way to where you're supposed to be and makes the play. Lindor made an insane play today. Yes, he's in the 99th percentile in range, but still, like, I mean, come on now. I mean, far too many times this team is winning in spite of McNeil, with McNeil not giving them much, not contributing much, whether at the plate or in the field. So it's like he's playing other positions, but if he's not doing anything for you offensively, he's not necessarily playing great defense. It's like, what's the point? And, it's just frustrating that you'll see some good swings, like he had a nice double when there was the errors and stuff like that with Torrens, but he's never able to build on it. There's like, when's the last time he had a multi-hit game, So it's just been frustrating. Like the one series that he did really good was the one in Cleveland, but other than that, I just haven't seen him really build on it. So that's just been very frustrating that he hasn't been able to turn around no matter how many chances they've given him. Like, you're bound to at least get one good month, hopefully. Like, even if you have a couple of months, at least get one good month. Give me a good week or two. I just haven't gotten anything yet. So that's been very frustrating. And Ken, I'm so sorry, but there's another second baseman on this team that turns a better double play, and Jose Iglesias. I don't have the numbers. I'm sure Carson can pull them up, but Iglesias, already on his team, turns a better double play than him.
Yeah, I mean, the samples are kind of fluctuated, so it would kind of be grain of salt, but we all know that Jose Iglesias has quicker hands. He also has quicker hands than Guillorme. Okay, let's just say that. But for me, below expectations, this is a good honorable mention. It really is, because he has not been to the expectations, but to my expectations, I'm going to take this personally to heart. It's got to be Tylor Megill, because I was expecting something better. I really was. I was expecting for him to take at least somewhat of a step forward, especially with adding to the arsenal. Obviously, this new American Spork thing or whatever, also adding a cutter as well, refining the slider, uptick in velocity. There was mechanical adjustments. But again, we're just seeing the same issues. Not going deep into games, not putting away batters, not good enough pitch execution, high pitch counts. There's just no volume. And then also a lot of hard contact as well, which it seemed like he was kind of prone to limit that this year, and he hasn't. So the results are the results. And for that is what kind of earned him a trip down to AAA. There you go.
Yeah, and I think for Megill, just to add on to that, finally some health. I mean, this is a guy that, like, one of his big struggles has been staying on the field. Here, he's finally healthy, but now the performance isn't where it needs to be. Too many walks. The worst
Alonso
nines on the whole.
Let me just. Alonso's been a disappointment. Absolutely.
He made the All-Star team, though.
But he did the All-Star team, so that all negates everything. No, but when I say Megill, I mean it from my expectations. I was expecting him to take a step forward. Now, we all know that I'm a huge Megill softie, and I know everybody else isn't. But for me, Megill, not really, just way below expectation. What are you looking at me for? What happened?
They just showed, they posted a picture that Pete Alonso and Jose Iglesias are traveling together with Ryan McMahon as they were all going from Citi Field to
Sick.
Arlington. Listen, I've talked about McMahon for years. He'd fill that second base void, that left-handed bat void. Pretty nice. He had some ugly chases today, some mental mistakes, but overall he's been phenomenal.
We
So
already
that's
know
interesting.
Pete's not asking the. We all know that Pete's not going to be asking the right questions. Let's just be real for a second. He's going to be, oh, what's your favorite color, man? All right.
What's your favorite food?
Yeah. All right. Absolutely. How about played above expectations? We'll call this the Oh My God Award. How about that? Let's call it that. Huh? All right. So I better hear one player from you.
Yeah.
If not,
yeah. You know who it is. It's Harrison Bader. He's been great. I mean, I can't knock the guy anymore. Can't hate on the guy anymore. I was very not on board with the signing. I just didn't think he had it in him offensively. I mean, this is a guy that he's had injuries and just constantly been below league average, but now he's above league average, no doubt about it. And he's also healthy. So he's just been way better than I could have hoped for, especially now turning 30. Like, that's something that it doesn't always happen. Change of scenery, now being a Met, additional pressure. He was in St. Louis, he was with the Yankees, with Cincinnati. So he's had some pressure,
I think he loves it.
Pressure.
I think he loves it.
And I think he does too. I feel like his energy
Which is
really
awesome.
yeah, it does look well. I mean, his energy really stands out compared to a lot of the other guys on the team. So, he's a guy that he's really done well, obviously, and then obviously defensively too. We knew that was going to be the case, but he's just been really steady. Also, being a guy that with runners in scoring position, runners on base, late in games, a lot of times he's come through. He's gotten the big hits, big at bats. So. He's done everything to hope for at a 1-year deal, and the fact that like this guy that I was like, oh my god, no way, don't get him, don't bring him on the team. But now that there's a legitimate conversation to, it's like, is this somebody that you might re-sign? That I really wasn't expecting. Like, okay, wait a second, is this someone you might want to keep? Which is a conversation that we'll have another day. I'm still not quite sure about that, just with some of the internal options and the age and the position. But overall, I mean, I thought he was just going to be a disaster. I thought that, I mean, the way I saw it was if Drew Gilbert was healthy, Bader was going to be abysmal, and then Gilbert was just going to take his job. That's just the way I was hoping. But instead, Marte's been the problem. And that was one of my other worries, was that you already had an injury history prone outfielder, and then you added another one. I was afraid that both of them could get hurt. But, Bader, he had that situation where he ran into the wall, and he's been dealing like with this neck thing a little bit, so he's been getting some off days. But neck looked pretty good on Friday when he's having a multi-home run game. So, I mean, all in all, like, he's just been really, really solid. So, I give him a ton of credit.
Yeah, I think he's more absorbed the blow than actually just like taking it down like how Marte has. Just crashing into the wall, and then he just continues to do that. I mean, it's just unreal. I mean, unreal what he has been. I mean, he's become that guy where he's involved in pretty much every single game. You know that there's a specific moment as to where he's impacted the game, and it becomes like, okay, there goes that guy again. He's just there. He's always on the screen, and he just embraces it. I love it. He's an awesome energy. I love Harrison Bader, what he's been able to do for the team. Again, I was pretty neutral on it. Like, I think that there was some concerns, and then there was also some ways where he could provide value in the margins. That's what he has done, and then some this year. Above expectations, I think that obviously with the guy that they brought in right before the season started, easily has to be Mark Vientos. I think that we did not really expect him to even be on this team as like a future piece, but then Beatty started to struggle. They plugged in Mark Vientos into third base, and he's been phenomenal. Not amazing defensively, let's just say. There's still things that he needs to work on, of course, but he's gotten better. But offensively, we're really starting to see him hit his stride. Let's just say that. We're waiting to see how it sustains, of course. But overall, again, it's been a great, and I mean a great, ride. Let's just say so far with Mark Vientos as compared to somebody like Brett Beatty, who they had more expectation for.
Yeah, and I think with Mark, he's someone that I always said I wasn't quite sure what he was. I feel like that's kind of where
Yeah.
I was at, is that I didn't really know what my expectations were because I didn't know what to expect because of all the inconsistent playing time he's gotten. I mean, there's just been so many times where like they call him up and they send him down. He gets to play third, and then Beatty gets to play third. And then going into this season, we thought he was going to be our opening day DH. Like we were like, oh, this is gonna be a DH. This is what they talked about all offseason. It's gonna be Mark. It's gonna be Mark. Whatever. And then JD Martinez gets here. And we're like, oh my gosh, here we go again. Vientos is not gonna get to play. They're gonna have Beatty at third and JD at DH, and Vientos is gonna be in the minor leagues, and they're still not giving the guy a chance. We don't know what he is. They lied to us during the offseason. But then he does end up playing full time, but at third base. And I'm glad it worked out that way because, like I've said, it's been a position that's given us trouble for so long to finally get someone that's being productive, obviously offensively, but even defensively, like if he could get to it, he does a pretty good job. He's been all right. It helps that Lindor's next to him, so at least he's got someone to help him out, not only just on the field, but also like mentoring and teaching. I've heard Mark talk about the way that Francisco has helped him out with his preparation and just kind of the way he sets up when he's on the field. So he's definitely been an awesome surprise. But I just think that like with Bader, I was like, oh, this guy's could be a disaster. But with Vientos, I'm like, I'm not sure what he's going to be. Like,
Yeah.
I was just very like kind of
I
wait
just
and
didn't
see.
even
Like,
expect him to be a factor
yeah,
this year with
yeah.
JD
I just didn't
Martinez
know how
coming
they were
in.
going to utilize
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, it was odd, but it all just took Beatty being Beatty to really put us into that position. And like you said, like guys off the field and everything, guys in the clubhouse. I mean, he's in a really good position as well, and it shows that players in a good position, they can develop fairly well. If you want to be an elite hitter, JD Martinez is the guy. If you want to be an elite defender, you want to be a good defender, a serviceable defender, Francisco Lindor. I mean, he has a really good situation around him, and he's taken it and he's ran with it, and he's been great. He's been one of our best performers, possibly our best hitter, if you want to accrue sample size a little bit and skewer it. But he's been great. Now, let's get to the most underrated player in the first half, and I'm going to start this one off because it was asked. Well, here it is. Here's your slot. Luis Torrens. That's who I'm going to pick. I mean, what an impact this guy has made to. Whoops, glitch there. What a guy. What a impact this guy has made to a really big problem that we had at the beginning of the season, to throwing out runners and holding runners, not allowing free bases, with the walks that were coming with it. This guy is just darting guys. What is he, 7 for 11, I think, on throws?
No,
The second,
8 of
7 for
11.
10?
8
8
of
of
11.
11. Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's
what an arm
insane.
this man's got. Also a good defensively. And then offensively, he's been contributing as well. I don't think that's going to sustain again, because I think that Alvarez should be playing 4 out of 5 days. And, he's the backup guy. But when you look at from like Nito or Narvaez, I think Torrens, he takes the cake here. I mean, we all love Nito, and I know a lot of pitchers like him. But Torrens has been a breath of fresh air ever since he got here, since he stepped foot. I think it was in D.C. It was first game with us. So that was really impressive. Underrated player. Frank, who would be your pick?
Gosh, I mean, there's like Torrens is the obvious choice, but someone who I think it kind of goes maybe under the radar, and I don't know, this isn't going to stick, but the starting pitcher that's currently in the rotation with the lowest earned run average is Mr. David Peterson. So
Is he?
I gotta.
Does he have the lowest?
He's at 309. So,
No, Sanga's got a 0. Nope, stop it.
I gotta
Dear
give
Lord.
Peterson credit. I don't know why, but they love hitting for this guy. The man is 4-0, and Christian Scott can't get a win. So I don't know why, but when Peterson pitches, the offense goes off and they win ball games. And I feel like it's just not talked about. He's just kind of been there in the rotation. And, we all the time we talk about McGill versus Pearson, and we say it's close. They're similar level, whatever. And Peterson's been the guy that survived, and McGill's in the minors, and we don't know if maybe he does get called up with what's happening with Hauser or whatever, and the success that Budo has now had in the bullpen, and his brother's good in the bullpen, whatever. But I mean, Peterson, he's just been pretty good, and he's doing it without Alvarez. I think it's the other just like really weird part is that he's a guy that actually does better with Torrens. So he's just weird. I don't know. And he's just a guy that the slider is finally coming along a little more. He was struggling to find it when he was first starting this year, but it looks like it's finally coming together a little bit more. So I've been encouraged by that, and just overall, his walks are kind of in line with the rest of the team, honestly. So he's always had a walk problem, but with the way the rest of the rotations, he's like the rest of them. So at least he's not just out of this world walks. I mean, there's actually less walks per nine than McGill. So it's just been a strange season, but he's just gotten the job done every 5 days. And, that's very important. And now we talked about even Quintana. Like, we're like, listen, I'd rather trade Quintana and keep Peterson in the rotation. So it's like he's kind of gotten above a couple of guys now in the pecking order as far as like who you want in the rotation. So I give him credit. I just feel like he's someone that isn't really being talked about much. Like, obviously, like I want to say Nunez, but I feel like a lot of people are talking about Nunez now. So he's not underrated. I feel like people are giving the respect that he deserves because he's been so fantastic. But Peterson, he's just kind of been steady, and like it's surprising when you're like, oh, a 309 ERA, what? Like, that doesn't make sense. Now, the volume is still an issue. Like, he still does get behind counts too much, and obviously those walks still affect things. So he doesn't work quite as deep into games as I would like for him to. But the team just scores him so many runs that, they're winning. But that's just the one thing. I do want to see him work a little deeper into games because even though the team scores you a lot of runs, the bullpen can make it close real quick if you're having to use them so much. And then what happens is that even if your offense is giving you a bunch, you don't go deep into games. Now use the bullpen in that game, and now they're not available for those other tight games, and that's where things could get very dicey. So I'll give him credit for he's been off to a good start right now.
I think Peterson's Peterson. Like, again, I'm done talking deep into this. I'm done getting emotional over this. I'm done having death threats to my house. Do I think it's going to stick? No. I think that we're in store for something rough, but you know what? I'm just going to keep it silent because one, I'm not going to just full on raise eyebrows right now. I'm not here to fight it all off. And also, we're kind of running low on to time because we do have a segment I do want to get into because the draft is already started. And we're kind of running a little bit behind on that. So let's get to the LVP, the least valuable player. Someone who has not been good. Someone that has been horrendous. Frank, I'll go to you. What do you think on this one?
Yeah, I mean, there's two guys that are, I mean, there's a few guys, but I think the two guys are really battling it out. I'll take one of them, Diekman. I mean, this is a guy that just too many times they bring him in for an outing where they're like, okay, face a left-hander, get a couple of outs, don't mess it up. And this guy just comes in, walk, home run, hit by pitch, line drive, like just he does everything wrong. I mean, it's a legit anxiety attack, panic attack every time this guy's in the game. I mean, it is like pulling teeth, pulling out hair every time I watch this guy on the mound. So I can't stand it. It's very just annoying where like there are times where a game is close and he makes it not close, or where the Mets have a big lead, now the Mets don't have a big lead. He's a guy that a lot of times can't finish his outing, and now we have to use an arm that we didn't want to use. So it's been him and another guy, but he's just been constantly. I mean, he did it again in this series too. Like, it just feels like almost every single series he's just having a bad outing. Like, he had the one good outing against Washington, and then he just went back to being not good.
Yeah, there's no real way to sugarcoat around this. I mean, he's been a dumpster fire. He really has. Yeah. I mean, and I understand he's only making $4 million. Again, there's the vesting option. We've talked about that before. But, I mean, is it really getting what you paid for? He's been one of the worst relievers in all of the league for the past, 2 months. I mean, it's been horrendous. So let's just say Adam Ottavino is also a good candidate for this,
Hmm.
but it's pretty
Yep.
self-explanatory who's been the worst player on this team, and that being Jeff McNeil. He has been the worst player on this team, and I'm not going to go deep into it because we have had this discussion already. And listen, I know that I've always been someone who has been hard on him. I am not a big fan of Jeff McNeil and how he kind of carries himself out, whether it's on the field or off the field. I just don't see the need for him whatsoever. Haven't seen the need for him whatsoever in years. But I didn't expect him to be the worst player in all of baseball. I don't think anybody did. I think we all saw him to maybe be a somewhat serviceable player to anchor the bottom of the lineup, bat ninth, bat eighth. He has been doing nothing. Nothing. He's been horrendous. And listen, I get he may had a few hits in this series, but that doesn't account for like the entire first half. And like Frank said earlier in this episode, he hasn't built on it. It's been horrible. Terrible. MVP. Let's talk about the best player. I think mine's pretty self-explanatory because I made my pick, I think, 2 episodes ago. Brandon Nimmo. Easily. The best player that they have had in the first half. I got to go with the MVP. You can talk about it so many times from, who's been a savior in the bullpen, which is, Danel Nunez or some guys who have performed fairly well. You can come from every angle because we've had a lot of guys contribute really well. And they've definitely helped us win in the margins or by the big ball.
Yeah, I mean, if not Nimmo, the other guy is Lindor. I feel like, not only the on the field stuff, but really
Yeah.
the meeting and all the changes you saw in the team afterwards, like just taking that initiative. I feel like he really was able to kind of, in a sense, save the season, so to speak, because it's just such a different team since that meeting and a different team since he started batting leadoff. And the more I watch, the more he looks comfortable, he looks confident, he looks balanced, and he's looking so much more like the guy from Cleveland when he was batting leadoff there as well. Like it just his at bats look so much better. The home run yesterday was like Carlos Beltran-esque. I mean, the swing was so pure, straight away center field. I mean, he's just a guy that's just doing it all on the bases, at shortstop defensively, as a leader. Sometimes he does a mound visit or whatever. I mean, he's just done just so many good things. And he's another guy like Nimmo. A lot of times he's come through in the big spots, like in the rallies. I mean, today the Mets lost, but it was not because of Lindor. I mean, he gave them a lot of opportunities. He was drawing his walks. He was getting hits. Like, he was keeping them in this game. He was giving them a lot of golden opportunities. And then, unfortunately, Nimmo, Alvarez, Alonso restraining him, but he's just been a guy that he plays just about every single day. I mean, he just does so many good things that lead to winning. And I just feel like he's just been huge. He's been a really big factor for this team. And again, whether he's helping the young players or, just really doing it on his own, just a lot of big hits, left-handed, right-handed. It's just been a really nice season for him ever since that switch to leadoff spot. He got off to a slow start like he always does, but he's been looking really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's another guy that you can put in the All-Star hat as well. Again, he has a case for it, but again, he even said it himself. Winning baseball games is a lot more important than him being an All-Star. And I get it is maybe important to some of these players, but he's committed to win here, and he wants to play here, and he wants to be here. He's on the field every single day. So stop being such assholes to him. Stop being mean. And also for our guy M-Easy in the chat, because I don't know if he's watching or not still, but I'm also going to throw Alonso into the MVP conversation just for shits and giggles. Okay, now let's get into the meat of this episode, which I obviously have that I really want to talk about. And that being the MLB draft. Now, we all know about the Mets' focus on rebuilding their farm system and kind of loading that up and bringing in more young talent, with being one of the oldest teams, if not the oldest team in all of baseball. We definitely need to see a youth movement coming eventually. So, right now, at this current moment, we've seen some updates actually come in the chat through, and thank you guys for that, of the MLB draft that is going on as of right now. Now, luckily, the Mets are picking 19th overall. So we have a little bit of time until then because they like to drag out the first round. So as I am looking at this, I have 6 different draft candidates that I'm gonna go through and do a little bit of a rundown on them. Frank, you can give your opinions on them. Guys, we'll pull up your opinions on the chat as well of guys that I would possibly draft if I were the Mets in that 19th spot. Also, I have a few guys that I would take in the second round if they drop there as well. Basically, day one types of selections. Now, this is not going to be a dream scenario because even if this was a dream scenario, I'd say just trade up for Jack Caglione, who's a two-way star who hits the ball 100 miles an hour and throws the ball 100 miles an hour. No, these are guys that are hovering around that projected 19th pick. Some guys that are good value picks, some guys who are overslot picks. And there is 2 pitchers that I have on here and 4 position players. And I'm going to give a little bit of a rundown. I'll also give some major league comparisons as well. So, a different way to kind of run these things down. So obviously I do want to start with the name that has definitely come up the most with the Mets, and that being Vance Honeycutt from North Carolina. Now, obviously, this is quite the name. Let's just say that. Honeycutt, very nice last name, but there's a lot more to it. Now, when you look at Honeycutt, this guy's 21 years old. He's 6'3", 205, out of North Carolina, and he is one of the toolsiest players in the entire draft. He's got plus power, speed, and a great arm, along with outstanding defensive prowess at all 3 outfield positions, mainly playing center field this year. Now, one of my favorite parts about him actually is his bat, but with some scouts, they have said that it is a bit suspect. They've talked about the uptick in his strikeouts and chases, with some doubts on his pitch selection as well, which personally doesn't bother me because as far as free swingers go, considering the plus pitch recognition that he does seem to have, being able to pull fastballs, being able to locate breaking balls and off-speed stuff, I feel like that will eventually get better over time if he does pan out well. But nonetheless, I can say that this is a possible 30-30 threat if he does pan out. He has a massive pull side with a steady right-hand swing, with a tremendous bat speed. The tools pretty much speak for themselves. And as I've said, with incredible defensive prowess, able to cover so much range in the outfield. Some scouts are even already writing this kid as a major league Gold Glove candidate. And if you think I'm joking, I'm actually not. They actually believe that this guy could win a Gold Glove in the majors right now. And it's possibly just basically refining that hit tool is the main part of his development if he were to come to the Mets system or wherever he does get drafted. The 5-tool star ceiling is there. Now, in terms of MLB comparisons, I think I have a little bit of a split on this as to where offensively, with strength and speed and range, I see a little bit of Tyler O'Neill in there. That is something that I would say. And then defensively, I'd say one of his teammates, actually, Jarren Duran, defensively. Lots of tools in the outfield, lots of strength. There is a lot that meets the eye there. And I think that, there are concerns, of course, with his bat. I think that there are definitely concerns there, no matter what. But I'm not one to really knock down strikeouts as people do. I see them as very subjective these days of how you can actually see with the approach, because when you swing and miss at a pitch in the zone, sometimes, you won't swing and miss at it the next time, unless you're DJ Stewart, who just whiffs at everything. But now Vance Honeycutt, what do you like? What do you dislike about this, Frank? Do you think this would be a good pick? Thoughts on him?
Yeah, it's tough when you're picking 19 because, like you said, you're not going to get like the marquee guy. But when you're trying to evaluate it, like from a long-term perspective, even a short-term perspective, outfield is a place that I like to hang around, specifically because there are 3 outfield spots. So a lot of times, like you could find a way if the guy is a good player to get him on your team. And like you said, what I like about it is that he has multiple things that you like about him. So you like the defense, you like the speed, you like the power. those are things that you can't really teach. Those are things that, for the most part, you either have it or you don't have it. So the other stuff, as far as like pitch selection, cutting down on strikeouts, things like that, those are things that you can learn as you get more reps. You do get better pitch selection, discipline, things
He
like
does
that.
walk a good
But
amount too to kind of offset that
and
as
if he
well.
walks,
So
but you know what? It's a lot of what you're saying. It kind of fits the modern player as far as like, okay,
yeah,
swing at pitches that are in the zone, take your walks, and then if you do some other things for me, as far as like you still play defense and you're still running, like those are things that, whether you're a starter who's like a weak hitter but still a good defender, you could still play. If you're a guy that's mostly a speed guy, you could come off the bench and you could fill in as a late game replacement. You could come in as a pinch runner. You're a guy that has some home run power. You could come in as a pinch hitter. So no matter what, there's still an avenue for a guy playing. And like I talked about, right now this team is very infield heavy in their top prospects. Between the guys that they traded for last year, between the guy that they drafted last year, and the other guys at the top like Jet and Acuna, they're very infield heavy. And, there are some long-term outfield concerns. Once Marte is gone, Bader, I don't know how long he's going to be here, if they're going to re-sign him or not. So, again, there's going to be an avenue. Like, there is playing time. And a lot of time with baseball, it's like, take the best player available. But I just feel like with that many tools, there's a few different avenues to where it's like, okay, this can work out. This can help a team. So I like it. I mean, I think I would be happy with a Tyler O'Neill or a Jaron Duran. Those are two players that I like a lot. They bring a lot. And again, a lot of those other skills, you can't teach it. We've talked about the Mets need to get younger, the Mets need to get faster, and he helps accomplish both of those goals. So he's someone that I could definitely see being impact. 21, so he's not too young either, so he's not too far away. So, there's a few things to like. I mean, North Carolina, it's done some really good things for basketball, so hopefully he can do the same for baseball. He's not Michael Jordan or James Worthy, but we'll see what happens.
or Vince Carter, or
Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
But yeah, of course, I think when you look at it, there's always going to be things that have concern with it, and this is something that has always been, that was a concern with Colin Houck, the guy that we picked last year, which was a little bit later on. The pitch selection, the pitch recognition, but he's a little bit younger. Colin Houck, he's 18, so there's definitely concern there. I get it. And of course, update coming in from Darren Rivera that Hagen Smith, left-handed pitcher, is going to the White Sox. He's not on my list, so we're still good at this current moment. But I think that this is also another question as to if he does last to 19, because he is, one of the high guys out there, because there has been, again, like I've said,
I mean, your graphics show
I have
20,
it here.
22
Yeah.
and 42.
Yep.
I mean, then there's one that says 14, but
I mean,
yeah.
I think that, but I think this is a good match, specifically with David Stearns, who likes the run prevention up the middle, of course. He likes these toolsy players. Who, I mean, obviously he does like a lot of the guys that make a lot of contacts. Maybe there is a question mark there, but if he's there at 19, I'm taking him with bells on. Let's just say that. I think that that's some tools that you can take, and he's not 5'8". That's how I look at it. He's not 5'8". It's a big frame. He's physical. He's big. He's a big boy, 6'3". So that could be a potential anchor to a lineup if he does pan out, and I think that it would be a decent pick. And at 19, of course, and I think that it comes into the realm of that it may be a little bit of a project for the hitting, but he's got some tools that you can't teach, and I think that that's the way that you kind of look at it. The best athletes usually are the shortstops or whatever, but when you got an outfielder, you got an outfielder, and this guy can provide a lot of it. And I've been quite a fan of him when I've been looking into the draft discussion recently in the last month. Now, I obviously want to go to another position player that I think probably it all depends if it maybe is like a second choice or something if Honeycutt were to go. But Theo Gillen is somebody that I think would be somebody that you can consider here. Now he's a little bit on the younger side. He goes to Westlake High School. I believe he's the only high schooler I have on this list here. He's 18 years old. He's an infielder. He's 195. Still has to grow into that frame, obviously, out of Westlake High School. And scouts have labeled him as the best bat out of any high schooler in this draft as of right now. He has a very quick left-handed swing that gets to the barrel to the ball at a plus rate with a very good pitch selection and an on-base prowess. He does have a plus raw power tool that gives him a 20 to 25 home run major league floor if you were to pan out, because he still has a lot of growing to do into that 6'2 frame. Now, Gillen's speed has also been graded as a plus as an overall well-balanced athlete, with only the tool of concern being his arm, of course, which may limit him to second base or maybe left field, which is usually the laziest arm, mainly because he did undergo torn labrum surgery in his right shoulder last year. Now, his overall size does profile him as still maybe a shortstop going forward. But worst comes to worst, he does also have some utility upside. He's quick enough to cover center field, but at worst, you could see him move to left field with those types of tools that he has that are raw. But there is some recovery that is going on with his arm that has kind of weakened a little bit since that surgery, which is definitely understandable. But out of high school, this is still one of those wait and see type of prospects. But he does have a very promising floor as you look at the tools and just the overall hit tool, which as compared to somebody like Honeycutt, is a little bit more refined. And it's kind of weird as to where, he's 18 years old, but he's able to get on base and, maybe he starts stealing a little bit more bases or whatever. With high school, they don't even really show many stats at all. So I just kind of had to put in the notes here. But as terms of major league comparisons, I kind of see this as kind of like a utility role where, he doesn't play at the best, but he has the tools as to where he can provide that value. So it's a Jerickson Profar type of thing as I look at it. Obviously not the biggest profile prospect that Jerickson Profar was, but kind of what Jerickson Profar has turned out to be in the major leagues, being a really good role player this year, an all-star and one of the best hitters in all of baseball this year. And also, this is not a comparison from me, but with the power and the prominent pull side that he does have and good pitch recognition, there's been some Marcus Semien, kind of a Marcus Semien comparison. I don't like that because he does bat from the left side. I think that there's a different way that you have to look at it with pitches and pitch recognition from the right side to the left side with that type of platoon. So I don't like it, but it's out there. Marcus Semien, we all know how big of a fan I am from his days in Oakland, so I had to mention it. But Theo Gillen, this is definitely more wait and see because he's younger, but there's definitely a lot of promise here. Frank, what do you think about the possibility of Theo Gillen? Again, big surplus of middle infielders. I get it. We have here. But you never draft for need, of course, because of the minor league system.
Yeah. I mean, I find it interesting that Fangraphs had him at number 7. And the number 7th pick just passed in the draft as we're doing this right now. And he was not selected, so he's still on the board. But just the fact that even as a high schooler, that he does have that like top 10, top 7 kind of potential that some places value him that. But there is a little bit of that wide range because other places have him like in the 20s. So, it's tough when you're coming off of a shoulder. That's something that really isn't ideal. Yeah. Shoulders are so important in baseball, as we know, hitting, throwing, everything like that. So that's always a tough one. The labrum, like kind of how they're able to rehab from that. But if he already has a good bat and he's young, that's encouraging. Like I said, there is a little bit of a glut, so to speak, when you have Rodriguez and Vargas, who are both middle infielders who are around the same age range as well. Now he is a little taller, so that's encouraging. The arm is like I don't know.
You can see here.
Yeah, so possible outfielder. So that's good that you do have a few different spots you could put him at. So he's someone that, like you said, it probably wouldn't be like. I mean, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, it's really a tough one because if you're picking number 19 and the guy has such a wide range, it's really a tough one. Because you're in high school, but if he's one of the best bats in high school, like there's just still so much to be determined that it's just really tough to say like either way, like yes, it's a definite, or maybe no. It's like you said, probably not the first choice, but I always think there is appeal that this is a guy that has maybe potential to be a top 10 pick, and maybe because of injury you're able to get him a little later than you expected, but then if other places have him in the 20s, it's tough, so I'm kind of curious what was his projection prior to the injury, and just kind of seeing how that's kind of developed as far as the way teams are evaluating him.
Yeah, the best way that I would describe this is he did play a lot after that shoulder injury. So he did give us a decent sample. So the fact that he is number 7 there, maybe there was possibly like a top 5 before the shoulder, but he really did hit the stride after that shoulder surgery. But the main thing that has really struggled for him, and the main reason as to why he's kind of been limited to second base recently, has obviously been his shoulder and the arm strength, of course. And it's probably one of the main reasons as to why you may see him vary to the outfield or something. But I think that there is a decent amount of upside there. And another guy that is not on this list here. So again, but Jack Caglione, we all know this is quite a name here. Royals fans, get ready, because this guy's pretty exciting. There's a lot of upside there. Let's just say that. And Weatherholt, it looks like, might be going off the board here.
Yeah, he went to the Cardinals.
Cardinals, okay. Cardinals taking a big lefty. What else is new? Okay. Now, there is another position player, a very toolsy player, which I'm going to skip over one of the other guys who's in the outfield, but I want to talk about this guy because I got to get him in no matter what, if we run out of time or not, because there's a possibility that he does get sniped up in some kind of overslot pick, and that has got to be Christian Moore, who I think is just... I think he's just fantastic. I think there's a lot of tools here that I really do like in terms of balance overall. I think that this guy can be a huge, like, in-the-middle type of player. And there is a lot of high ceiling. There is maybe a little bit of low floor, but he's a pretty exciting player. As from what I've been able to see from the good and the bad film from Tennessee with Christian Moore. Now, he is 21 years old, 6'1", 210 out of Tennessee. He has all 5 tools at a serviceable level, but he's more of an offensive first player. Now, at the plate, he is really good at doing damage with an aggressive approach. It's powered by great bat speed. There's great strength. And Moore has been scouted as a future 25-plus home run potential at the big league level if he does pan out. And even though he does like to swing with a big uppercut, you may be thinking there's some red flags here of Javi Baez. No, he does draw a lot of walks with his swing decisions that are still a work in progress, but he has been getting a lot better at that, which has really improved in 2024. His production at the higher levels will most likely be more based on the power production to kind of profile as an everyday player with the work in progress hit tool, as I said. And there is a small concern with velocity, but he has improved mightily as the time went on this season, along with the plus low ball tendencies that he has, where he's able to make a lot of contact. The strikeouts are a little bit higher than you wanted them to be before his junior year, but they obviously come down to that 14.5%. So, again, they're more subjective and everything, but the hit tool has definitely gotten better. It's still a plus. His defense still does have some room to improve with that overall consistency. But the average prowess overall kind of makes him more of a second baseman. Maybe you do see a little bit of outfield as well, but that still kind of has come into question. Basically, scouts are just seeing this guy as a pure run creator. Basically, always in the middle of the offense, whether it's his loud bat, whether it's manufacturing stolen bases. He just went off the board. Of course he did. Like I just said. Just as I'm talking about him.
Wow.
So I guess we'll just have to move on.
So he beat
like
all
I
of these.
said. Yep, exactly. Like I said.
Wow.
Great timing, huh? Man,
I was getting excited too. Right. I liked him, but he gone.
Who stole him from us? Who
Angels.
stole him from us? Oh, fuck the Angels. All right, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into the last position player that I have on here, which is quite a fun name. Let's just say Ryan Waldschmidt from
Oh
Kentucky.
boy.
This is quite a interesting bat. Let's just say that. But he's 21 years old. 6'2", 205, out of the University of Kentucky, and he excels at the most important hitting tool, in my opinion, that being quality of contact. His ability to register high AVs with a good pull side and lift the ball at an elite level gives him quite the power ceiling with the quick and level right-handed swing that he does have. Now, in addition to that, he is a fairly disciplined hitter with some of the lowest chase rates among the entire SEC conference over the last 2 years. Now, he was off to a slow start in his first year before transferring to Kentucky. Health did really take a front seat to prevent him from reaching that ceiling. He underwent ACL surgery, which kind of limited him to the designated hitter role. Now, over the last season, his overall power output really showed up due to his upper half heavy swing, which can be seen as something to limit his ability to get the barrel to each zone consistently. But as for Waldachuk has gotten healthy, we've definitely seen that kind of pan out a little bit better. Did I say Waldachuk? I think I meant Waldschmidt. But obviously, he has been able to register, some slightly above average speed. This is more of a power corner type of bat that you kind of look at it, which it can merit a test in center field depending on his health. But he's mainly a subpar outfielder in the corners overall defensively, basically spending most of his college career in left field. Now, if he were to pan out and his recognition at the plate does improve a little bit and he's able to get the barrel over the zone, which has improved over the last year, he has quite the strong ceiling as a power corner bat. Now, definitely he has more of a molding of an offensive first outfielder who can use his lower body to possibly develop some more serviceable tools. But I would say that more of this defensive power corner, I'd say that the good comparison here would possibly be at his best, Mitch Haniger. I think that that's a good comparison there. More discipline. There is some struggles there from bat to ball sometimes, but he's able to produce the power. He's able to also, something that he excels at as well, situational hitting, which we've already have talked about that with this team for a long time. So definitely buckling down with 2 strikes. That's something that he does fairly well. And I think that, that is basically just like one of those pure hitters. I mean, I guess you can throw in like one of those situational types of guys who basically just gives you such a balanced offensive prowess, which, it's a left-handed version, though, because he's a right-handed hitter. If you want to throw Michael Brantley in there, maybe something like that. But, I mean, I think that this is more of a underslot pick. This might be someone who does drop to the second round, maybe. But I think that this would be possibly a really good steal in terms of the floor. Overall, I think, depending on his health, you could see him adjust to the minor league levels with the wooden bats, the big adjustment, a lot quicker than compared to some of these hitters that are coming out of the first round who kind of struggle a little bit younger, a little bit less mature. This is a really disciplined hitter. But there's just some tweaks with consistency that I think that are like, they're in and out. Let's just say that, but all's for development. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the walk to strikeout ratio. That's something that's really good. And it's something that you're seeing the consistent improvement, which is so important with player development and young players, just constantly seeing them getting better. So, that's just a really good sign as far as like hopefully what to expect as they are getting more reps and just kind of refining their overall game. But another guy where he could do multiple things. Like he had some stolen bases in there, had some extra base hits in there. So just kind of being someone that's a little more versatile, not just kind of one guy. He has a frame that kind of fills out nicely to where it's like, okay, there's potential and that room for improvement, which is really important. Not like, oh, well, Mets have a bunch of guys who are 5'8", and that it's hard to get power out of those guys. Like, no, this is someone that you could see just kind of continue to get better. It's a name that I hope we don't have to say because that's pretty challenging and a tough one. So just for my sake, I hope we get someone that's a little bit easier of a name to say. But all in all, like
Waldy.
I said,
I don't know.
just Waldy. Hopefully, he gets a cool nickname
Waldy.
or something. That'd be good. Yeah. But we'll see if he lasts. I mean, because the draft is crazy. Because we had Christian Moore. He was projected
like
in the 20s,
I said,
and he's going at 8.
I wanted to get him out quick. I wanted to get him out quick because I knew he was going to go. I knew it.
It's interesting. Like we just yeah. We'll see who's available. I mean, it's very interesting. Because
literally the last bullet point I had there was like, I feel like he's going to be the biggest overslot pick here. And then he goes, like, before I can even get to that bullet point. So it's like, oh, that sucks. But again, like, those are some of the position players that I would kind of prefer at that 19 spot. Now, there is another part to this, and that being pitching, which is another possibility. Now, I have two arms that is more of the safe route or the sexy route. Now, there is a arm that has been attached to the Mets for a while, and there is intrigue there, but there is concern, and that being Brody Brecht. Now, this is a huge right-handed pitcher out of the University of Iowa. Now, explosive arm, let's just say that. He's 21 years old, right-handed pitcher, 6'4", 235 pounds. The guy's a tank. He is a very explosive arm with an arsenal that does get nailed up to the likes of Paul Skeens. I'm not going to go that far because it's quite a ladder in pitchability, especially with the comparisons of how these guys apply these skills. And let's just say that the major league ready stuff is somewhat there, but there is some inconsistency that has had a lot of red flags for Brody Brecht, who, is there a possibility that he does drop because of those concerns? They might. But I don't know if he was just selected or whatever. But anyways, now Brecht does have this very short stride to the plate, which kind of tends to impact a little bit of pitch shape, which is most likely going to need an adjustment, especially with how hard he throws. It might put him in some real injury risk. Let's just say that like short stacking it back and not using his 6'4" big extension. But of course he has the fastball that sits 98 to 99, tops 100. He has the slider, which is ideally his best pitch in the low 90s, has a ton of vertical enhanced movement, tons of horizontal run, which also can, kind of see it as like kind of a hybrid pitch as well. Is very explosive. If you want to say the term splinker or whatever, because he also does have this splitter that he occasionally uses with that extra fade as well, but it's also in the low 90s. But we all know that Brecht, he does come up with a huge problem. Doesn't give up a lot of home runs, not a lot of base runners from contact. But the problem is the walks. There are lots, and I mean lots of walks. And a lot of shaky command sometimes as well. Tough pitch sequencing that obviously has to get better. And let's just say that has kind of locked him in to the reliever only upside list. And it's really hard to justify using a first round selection on non-starter capacity. So I do believe that Brecht most likely either he drops to late the first round or he drops to the second or maybe even the third round. And listen, I think that there's tons of upside here, but there's a lot of risk. And this is an arm that I would take a bet on, possibly if he dropped to the 46 spot or the 82 spot. but there is a lot of risk here. Let's just say that. It's a sexy pick. You can't teach 100 miles an hour unless you're Jacob deGrom, who developed it. Jacob deGrom's one of a kind. But there's a lot of red flags here, and that's kind of how I explain it through these comparisons. Michael Kopech, there's Andres Munoz, a lot of control issues, lots of movement, explosive arms that most likely will succeed as a reliever, which is kind of hard to justify taking at the 19th spot. So it's a sexy pick. Let's just say that. The explosiveness is there, but there are red flags. I'm not just going to say this guy's incredible. I'm going to give it to you straight. There are red flags with Brody Brecht. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that we talked about, like with the walks, it's something that is getting better each season. So that's encouraging. Yeah. It's that, like, okay, I have a weakness that we've identified, and we're working each year to improve it. So that's something that I think is encouraging, hoping something that they could build on and just kind of keep going in that direction. Because, like you said, it's hard to be a starter with a walk rate that high. Like, you just put yourself in a very tough spot far too often with just little room for error. And then, as we've seen this season, but high walks mean high pitch counts. High pitch counts mean low amount of innings, which means more bullpen innings, which is just something that you really can't afford. Even if we're talking about like 3 years from now, 4 years from now, and maybe the Mets have like a totally different bullpen, it doesn't matter. It's still just not very conducive to winning baseball for a 162. So that is something that does need to get corrected. But like you said, you also can't teach 100 miles an hour. And I'm always of the mindset that you can never, ever, ever, ever have enough pitching. And again, you can't teach 100 miles an hour. So it's someone that, like you said, if he does fall, I definitely take a chance on it. I mean, there is some concerns right now as far as what is the future for like Vassell and Hamill and some of these guys. Scott's here. He's had his struggles with Sproat and Blade, but you still could always definitely need much more pitching. So I wouldn't be mad at that at all. But if the projections have them in the 20s or what have you, I mean, we'll see. But it's just something that is it's interesting. Like you have like this glaring weakness that could be a problem, but I'm just glad that they're continuing to improve it. So I'm kind of curious to see kind of how it all shakes out as far as like. Is that something that just continues to improve, and then he gets that under control and he's able to just kind of let his stuff play and just be a really good pitcher?
Yeah, I mean, he is very close to major league ready stuff, and I think that there's a possibility as to where he does have a short tenure, but perfecting the control and the command, maybe some mechanical issues, like I've said, with like that short stride, kind of maybe using his extension a little bit more, perceived velocity, there might be a little bit of kind of an adjustment period as to where maybe this guy doesn't come up until he's like 26. There's maybe a late blooming situation where, maybe he does, like, maybe he will, like, they'll try to have him as a starter first and foremost, but there is a lot of reliever upside there as compared to a starter upside, which is why I think it's a risk. I wouldn't take it at 19 personally. If they take him at 19, I wouldn't be upset. But when you talk about very underrated pitchers, this is one of my favorites. And this is actually the last guy that I'm going to put out here. And hopefully he does not get selected. I don't think he will. Seaver King went. Good. I didn't want him on the Mets. Good. Nice. All right. Now, the final guy that I want to go to is, and it seems like a prerequisite to the draft, is obviously an arm out of Vanderbilt. It has to be. Let's talk about Bryce Cunningham. All right. He's 21 years old. He's a right-handed pitcher, big 6'5", big lower half, just a giant. Let's just say that. Just a big dude. Very physical presence. 230 out of the University of Vanderbilt. I mean, like I said, it's not an MLB draft without a highly profiled pitcher out of Vanderbilt. And Cunningham, he really has like that very strong upper half that allows him to execute great pitch shape, which has really gotten better in the last year or so. With the mid 90s fastball that can touch 97 to 98. And, he does tunnel it fairly well with apparently one of the best swing and miss changeups out of the entire collegiate level this season. That really drops late across the lower third of the plate. I wouldn't say it's like ghost fork territory, but I would say that it's quite a fading pitch that can really tunnel fairly well with his fastball that has great pitch shape. And also, he has this plus mid-90 sweeping action slider as well. Most likely we'll have to add in a cutter because there is going to be probably some tunneling issues, of course, with the separation of velocity, probably a cutter there. I don't know if you add a sinker as well with the sweeping action slider that you have. But he has a very clean and repeatable delivery that really improved over the last year after refining his strength and conditioning over the winter. Now, it has really allowed him to string along more effectiveness, go deeper into games, and kind of establish himself as more of a solid starting pitcher. Now, if he does add, like I said, like the more solidified slider, maybe there's a sinker, maybe there's a cutter. Most scouts are profiling Cunningham as like a potential mid-rotation starter as he continues to just throw strikes, continues to attack batters. I mean, this would be like one of the Jose Budos of the draft, like a guy who likes to attack hitters. He's like, here it is, go ahead and hit it. Obviously, there's some hard contact concerns. I get it. We have an ERA at 4.5 there. There's a concern, but guess what? Brandon Sproat was at the 4s, and he's dominating. All right, get out of here. Somebody I would kind of like put under here is, you know, when you talk about overall pitch shape with a fastball and a changeup, Mitch Keller is somebody that could come to mind, but there is another, some elevation he's got to have there to kind of improve that to more of a kitchen sink arsenal, such as Mitch Keller. Brandon Pfaadt is another one that comes up as well with his name, kind of a solid guy who can, just attack hitters, maybe a little bit prone to the home run ball, but knows how to pitch to contact, has good pitch shape. He's not amazing. He's not explosive. Maybe there's a possibility with his 6'5" using that extension. Maybe he does increase in velocity possibly. But I think this is a very sturdy pitcher. I think this is somebody with a very high floor. And I think this is he's one of my favorite arms in this draft. Obviously, I get Brody Brecht gets a lot of the recognition. There's some other guys. I think Chase Burns went already, I believe. But I'm talking about as in terms of like guys who can have a steady, just a steady high floor, someone who can just be very solid in execution, and there's no real just like full on doubt that this guy, he can't get the ball over the plate. He can't give you any consistency whatsoever. There's a lot of red flags. It seems like any red flag that he has, kind of at the midway point. Like it can go either way. It can be very pivotal for Bryce Cunningham. So that's why I like him as an arm. Do I think that he's better than Kumar Rocker was at Vanderbilt? No. Nobody was. Kumar Rocker, what a man we missed out on. But that is the final guy that I have as a possible draft wish list. Let me guess. He just got drafted by the Tigers.
No, I'm just looking at MLB. Corey Seager replaces Carlos Correa for the All-Star game. They have been showing American League replacements all the time and just nothing for the National League. And I'm like, It is Sunday night. The All-Star game is Tuesday. When am I going to know if Nemo and Lindor made the freaking team? I am waiting and waiting and waiting. Just tell me, please. I want to know. It's just so frustrating. And I just put in here Luis Arias. He's been doing a thumb thing. Looks like he might not be playing either.
Jeff
so
McNeil can come in. Let's go.
No,
you know what? Jose Iglesias is already on the way there.
He's already there.
Hey,
He's already
come on now.
Yeah.
Come on now. I think the audience is gonna like him at the home run derby. He's gonna get everybody get everybody hyped. All right. But Bryce Cunningham, thoughts on that, and then we'll get out of here. We'll close this out.
Yeah, so he's not someone they would pick with number 19, but I feel like, going for that upside pick with that next one, because the Mets do have that next pick in the 40s, that's something that's more appealing to me. Like you said, with pitching, you can never have enough. I do like that he's someone that, all right, they know the walks aren't as much a concern and things like that. But just kind of seeing what other pitches they might add. Like you said, the fact that there's like
Yeah.
a couple of different ways you can go. It's like, do you go cutter? Like that kind of stuff is always very fascinating to me. Is that it's like, we say sometimes like more weapons or like, just more options to have as a pitcher. Like that's appealing. But hopefully you're with the right player development. I mean, that's kind of what it ultimately comes down to, and something that like might be concerning a little bit is like, okay, there's a guy with some potential and some upside. Now you get him into your organization. It's like, okay, we have David Stearns now to identify the pitching talent, but can Jeremy Hefner get the most out of this guy and make sure that he's throwing the right pitches and that he's adding the right pitches? Because, I mean, an example is someone like we talked about earlier, Tyler McGill, your guy, who added some pitches, and it's like, okay, maybe things are going to be better, but it doesn't always work out that way. And it's something that with pitching, you could be a late bloomer. It could be a very late development where that's when you incorporate a new pitch. So I think that you're trying to get that upside. And Vanderbilt, like you said, is also just like known for pitching as well. So that's another thing that's like that's another thing that's very appealing. And it's something that I like in the 40s, like if I can get a pitcher who maybe is like a late bloomer or whatever, or all of a sudden could kind of crack the team for me, like that would end up being a really good value pick. So I can't knock it at all. Like I'd be totally on board.
Yeah, I think that there's some sexy picks, of course. There's guys that can hit 100 and whatever, but I think that, if you can get a balance of that or whatever, I think that this would be a solid, maybe it's an underslot pick, maybe a little bit lower. But I think that this is a very solid and it's more of just like a stable arm, which I think that the Mets have also really lacked for a long time of just, guys who can just come through the system. They're not flashy, but they get the job done with pitchability. They get the job done with pitch shape. And they're able to kind of help you fill in the margins of complementing the workload that comes from your ace or your top guys, kind of like complementing that rotation a little bit more, but then they're also young and they can do it for a little bit longer as compared to, somebody like Chris Bassett, who we brought in here. And, he was here for 1 year and that was it. He was giving us tons of innings and, that was it. He left for Toronto. So, I think that those types of arms are very important for the middle of the rotation. Let me guess. He's gone, right?
No, your buddy Christian Moore. He's
oh, God.
He said, I'll get a ring for sure. It's in my blood. It's like, dude, do you know who just got drafted by? Like, come on.
I don't know.
Listen,
maybe
I got nothing against him. I like the confidence, but it's just like, I hope you're with the Angels, dude. Like, best of luck to you, man. That's all I can say. Like, you might get a ring somewhere else, but it's just like, I like the confidence, but it's just tough. I feel for the kid being with Los Angeles. Like,
this guy.
Like, he could be great, but those other guys are just going to bring him down. And, like, it's a team sport. It's so tough. Like, I feel for the kid.
He's
but props to him.
No, he's quite an entertainer. Let's just say that. He's always he's always in the midst of it. He's like a young Jose Iglesias, he's in the middle of everything, putting on a show for everyone. I mean, I like that. I like the kid. He's going to be something. So hopefully the Angels don't ruin him. But other than that, I'm glad I was able to fit everything in. Obviously, one guy, Christian Moore, went while I was literally talking about him, which sucks.
Yeah,
but
on point.
I will have a full-length video reviewing all the Mets draft picks once all the draft is done, like I did last year. Make sure to go check that out. We have a little bit more time to do that now with the All-Star game a little bit. I can kind of configure some things. We're not in between streams where I only have a half day off or something. So as of right now, I can work on a little bit of the extra content. We'll also try to add in a little bit more of the trade deadline stuff. I don't know if we're going to do that live or offline and posting videos. I still haven't really figured that out, but I'll come with a decision real quick. But as for you, for those of you in here, thank you so much for watching, listening. If you guys were here for the whole thing, for those of you who tuned in live, for those of you watching on playback, for those of you who were in here for a little bit and wanted to see the draft segment or something, thank you so much. For those of you who tuned in, whether it's video or audio, we really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly channel if you have not already. Turn on those post notifications for this very podcast, which regularly is recorded on Sundays and Thursdays following every series of games. with the audio version dropping at 9 a.m. the following day. Now, we most likely will not have a show on Thursday because there is no games to cover. But maybe we will, maybe we won't. I don't know, but most likely we will not. But make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok. That features Frank's post games after every single game. Follow everyone individually, including myself, Frank, and also Andrew, who is our third co-host who hasn't been here for a while. So we're going to have to kick his ass in here and, lay down the hammer if he doesn't get in here. We're going to send him somewhere that he doesn't like. But anyway, no, that's a joke, by the way. So just don't take that the wrong way. But anyways, let's go Mets to those of you out here, and enjoy the rest of the draft for those of you who are watching it. Peace out. We'll see you guys next time.